Forget everything you thought you knew about wrestling legacies. Forget the sons and daughters who ride their parents' fame into a mediocre spotlight. On a night that will be spoken about for decades, the world witnessed the birth of something entirely new, something terrifying. This wasn't the debut of a celebrity's child. It was the arrival of an apex predator who had been hiding in a famous name's shadow. This is the story of how Steven Seagal's daughter didn't just join the world of wrestling. She took it hostage. Forget everything you thought you knew about professional wrestling. Forget the scripted promos, the predictable outcomes, and the legacy kids who ride their famous parents' coattails into a lukewarm spotlight. Erase it all. Because on a humid Saturday night at the AEW pay-per-view, Annihilation, the entire foundation of the sport was rocked by a debut so unexpected, so violent, and so masterfully executed that veterans, pundits, and fans are still struggling to process what they witnessed. This wasn't just a new wrestler's first match. This was a paradigm shift. It was the arrival of a ghost, a phantom born from Hollywood royalty and forged in shadows, who stepped into the squared circle and left a trail of disbelief and a broken champion in her wake. That ghost has a name, Arissa LeBrock, and yes, she is the daughter of martial arts icon Steven Seagal. But what she did in that ring had nothing to do with her father's fame and everything to do with a ferocity no one knew existed. This is the story of why and how it happened. The build-up. The whispers of the Onna-Musha. For 6 weeks, All Elite Wrestling, AEW, had been airing cryptic vignettes. They were masterpieces of minimalist horror. The screen would glitch, cutting to grainy black and white footage of a lone figure practicing in a dimly lit dojo. You could never see a face, only a silhouette. The figure moved with a chilling fluidity, a blend of brutal MMA strikes and the graceful, deadly efficiency of Aikido. Wrist locks flowed into throws. Devastating elbow strikes targeted pressure points with surgical precision. The only sound was the rhythmic slap of bare feet on mats and the sharp crack of strikes against a wooden makiwara post. At the end of each vignette, a single piece of Japanese text would appear on screen. Nu Wu Je. Internet wrestling communities went into a frenzy. The characters translated to Onna-Musha, a term for a female warrior from pre-modern Japan. The speculation was rampant. Was it a returning Japanese legend like Asuka or Io Shirai adopting a new, darker persona? Was it a decorated MMA fighter making the jump, perhaps Chris Cyborg or Kayla Harrison? The name Ronda Rousey was whispered, though it seemed unlikely. No one, not a single soul in the vast echo chamber of online wrestling punditry, came close to the truth. The promotion, led by Tony Khan, had locked down the secret with unprecedented security. The talent involved was kept to an absolute minimum. Even the reigning AEW Women's World Champion, the formidable Dr. Britt Baker, D.M.D., was only told she would be defending her title against a mystery opponent with a legitimate combat sports background. Baker, ever the confident heel, scoffed at the idea on television, promising to give the rookie a harsh "Welcome to the big leagues" and a dental plan to go with it. That arrogance would be her undoing. The night of Annihilation, the silence before the storm. The MGM Grand Garden Arena in Las Vegas was electric. The co-main event had just concluded, and it was time for the Women's World Championship match. Britt Baker made her grand entrance, smug and resplendent in a jacket adorned with golden dental tools, the crowd showering her with a mix of boos and cheers. She stood in the center of the ring, holding her championship belt aloft, a queen in her castle. Then the lights went out. The lights. A complete deafening blackout. Not the flickering lights of a typical dramatic entrance, but a total void of light and sound. The crowd's roar died, replaced by a nervous hum. For a full 30 seconds, there was nothing. It was a bold, unsettling choice. In that silence, the tension became a physical entity in the arena. Suddenly, a single, deep, resonant note from a taiko drum echoed through the speakers. Boom! Another? Boom! A slow, deliberate, funereal rhythm began. The giant screens flickered to life, showing not a name or a face, but that same Japanese calligraphy, Nu Wu Je. The entrance ramp remained dark. Then, from the darkness, a figure emerged, bathed in a single, pale white spotlight. She wore a simple black sleeveless guy top, black cargo pants, and her feet were wrapped in white athletic tape. Her hair was pulled back in a severe, tight ponytail. Most disturbingly, her face was completely concealed by a white, expressionless Japanese no mask, the kind used in theater to represent a ghost or a spirit. She walked with an unnerving calm. There was no pandering to the crowd, no high fives, no posturing. It was the walk of an executioner. The commentary team was stunned into silence for a moment before Jim Ross's legendary voice crackled with confusion. Folks, I've been in this business for 50 years, he began, his voice strained, and I have no earthly idea who this is. This is unsettling. The masked figure slid under the bottom rope, never taking her blank, painted eyes off Britt Baker. Baker's smug confidence finally began to crack. She shouted at the challenger, "Who the hell are you? Show me your face!" The Onna-Musha simply tilted her head, a gesture more menacing than any threat. The bell rang. The match, a 5-minute massacre. What happened next was not a wrestling match. It was a dissection. Baker, a highly skilled wrestler, charged forward. The Onna-Musha didn't move. At the last possible second, she sidestepped and used Baker's own momentum against her. With a flick of her wrist, she caught Baker's arm, twisted it, and sent the champion flying across the ring in a perfect Aikido kotegaeshi, wrist turn throw. Baker crashed hard against the turnbuckles, her face a mask of shock and pain. The crowd gasped. It was so fast, so effortless. Baker scrambled to her feet, furious. She threw a wild right hand. The masked warrior weaved under it, controlling the arm again. In one fluid motion, she transitioned into a standing armbar. Baker screamed, her elbow joint hyperextended. The challenger held it for a beat, showing complete dominance before shoving the champion away. She wasn't going for a submission, not yet. This was a lesson. For 5 excruciating minutes, this pattern repeated. Every offensive move Britt Baker attempted was neutralized, reversed, and punished. The Onna-Musha moved with a predatory grace, her style completely alien to the world of professional wrestling. She wasn't performing moves. She was applying a martial art in its purest, most brutal form. She used joint locks to control Baker's limbs, precise palm strikes to the champion's collarbone and ribs, and low, powerful leg kicks that buckled Baker's knees. She never went for a pin. She never climbed the ropes. She simply dismantled the champion piece by piece, her masked face an unreadable void. The crowd had gone from confused to awed. They were witnessing a complete and utter domination of one of the best wrestlers in the world. The end came with shocking finality. Baker, desperate, tried to apply her signature finisher, the lockjaw. As she tried to hook the arms, the Onna-Musha dropped her weight, spun inwards, and caught Baker in a devastatingly tight rear-naked choke. But it wasn't a standard choke. She applied it with a brutal twist, pressing her forearm into Baker's carotid artery with the focused pressure of someone who knew exactly how to cut off the flow of blood to the brain. Britt Baker didn't have time to tap. Her eyes rolled back in her head and she went limp. The referee, seeing the champion was unconscious, immediately called for the bell. It was over. The arena was in stunned silence. The new champion hadn't spoken a word, hadn't shown an emotion. She simply released the hold, letting Baker's lifeless form slump to the canvas. She stood up, her chest rising and falling rhythmically. Then, slowly, she reached up with both hands and lifted the no mask from her face. The reveal that broke the internet. The camera zoomed in. The face underneath was beautiful, but etched with an intensity that bordered on frightening. It was a face some recognized from the fringes of celebrity culture and high fashion, but had never associated with this level of visceral violence. It was Arissa LeBrock, the daughter of action movie star Steven Seagal and supermodel Kelly LeBrock. A wave of audible shock rippled through the 20,000 people in the arena. On commentary, Tony Schiavone screamed, "Oh my God, that's Arissa LeBrock, Steven Seagal's daughter!" The internet exploded. Twitter's servers seemed to groan under the weight of the traffic. AEW Annihilation, Nars Arissa LeBrock, and Heiser Seagal's daughter instantly became the top 3 trending topics worldwide. No one had predicted this. It was the best-kept secret in modern wrestling history. Arissa stood over Baker's body. The championship belt was handed to her by the referee. She didn't hoist it in the air with a triumphant roar. She didn't smile. She looked down at the gold and leather belt in her hands with a cold, analytical gaze. Then she looked directly into the camera. Her voice, heard for the first time, was low, steady, and full of ice. "This is not a performance," she said. "This is a correction. The era of divas is over. The era of warriors has begun. My name is Arissa, and I am not my father's daughter. I am my own legacy." She dropped the microphone, turned, and walked out of the ring as calmly as she had entered, leaving a world of stunned silence and a million questions in her wake. Why it happened, the secret origin of a warrior. So why? Why would the daughter of 2 iconic celebrities, a woman with a successful modeling career, step into the brutal world of professional wrestling in such a shocking fashion? The answer, pieced together from shell-shocked sources within her new professional home, is a story of fighting against a shadow. Arissa LeBrock, born in 1993, grew up in the immense shadow of her parents. Her father, Steven Seagal, was one of the biggest action stars of the 80s and 90s, famous for his stoic demeanor and mastery of Aikido. Her mother, Kelly LeBrock, was a definitive 80s icon, a supermodel and star of films like Weird Science and The Woman in Red. Arissa was the daughter of, a label that followed her everywhere. While she pursued modeling and even appeared on the reality show Growing Up Supermodel, she harbored a different passion. From a young age, her father had insisted she learn martial arts not just for self-defense, but for discipline. While the world saw Steven Seagal as an actor, Arissa saw him as a sensei. She trained extensively, not just in his signature Aikido, but in Judo, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and Muay Thai, often in private, far away from any cameras. It wasn't a hobby, it was a core part of her identity. Years ago, she had a brief tryout with WWE, the wrestling behemoth. But according to insiders, the company wanted to mold her into another glamorous diva to capitalize on her looks and her parents' names. They wanted her to be Kelly LeBrock's daughter who knew a few moves. She refused. She wanted to be seen as a legitimate fighter, not a novelty act. The experience left a bitter taste and strengthened her resolve to forge her own path. When Tony Khan and AEW approached her, they made a different offer. They had seen footage of her training, real, unsanitized sparring sessions. They saw the potential for something authentic and revolutionary. They didn't offer her a contract as Steven Seagal's daughter. They offered her a contract as a warrior, and they gave her complete creative control over her debut. The entire Onna-Musha angle was her idea. The mask, the silence, the clinical destruction of the champion. It was all a calculated statement. She knew that if she debuted with her name and face, the narrative would be about her father. The headlines would read, "Seagal's daughter plays wrestler." By debuting as a terrifying, anonymous force of nature and then revealing her identity, she flipped the script. The narrative was no longer about her lineage, it was about her terrifying ability. She forced the world to see the warrior first and the celebrity daughter second. The aftermath and the future. In the days following Annihilation, the wrestling world is still reeling. Pundits who once dismissed AEW are now praising its audacity. Fans are divided between awe and a sense of unease. Arissa LeBrock didn't ask for their cheers. She commanded their respect through fear. Steven Seagal, notoriously private, has not issued a public statement. However, a cryptic tweet appeared from his account the night of the match. The path of the warrior is one of solitude. The outcome is inevitable. It was deleted within an hour. As for the women's division, everything has changed. The other wrestlers now have to contend with a champion who doesn't play by their rules, whose style is lethally real, and who seems completely uninterested in the pageantry of the sport. She is an apex predator dropped into an ecosystem of performers. Arissa LeBrock's debut was a shocking story, but it's more than that. It was a declaration of independence written in violence. It was the story of a woman refusing to be defined by her famous name, choosing instead to build a new one on a foundation of broken bodies and shattered expectations. She didn't just win a championship, she hijacked the entire industry. And as the new Silent Queen sits on her throne, the entire world of wrestling is holding its breath, waiting to see what she will destroy next.